So now we're going to prepare a spicy shrimp cake with a avocado and corn salsa. Very simple process, just a couple of steps here. We're going to start with the shrimp cake. It's very easy to do. We've got all of our ingredients here. The pan is warming up on the stove, and we will go ahead with that. So here are the things, a couple of things that we can know about a shrimp cake. Typically might be very high in fat. What we've done in this case to bring some of that fat down is we are going to use a lower calorie mayonnaise instead of a full fat mayonnaise, which is helpful. There's nothing wrong with them. There was a time when they were not very pleasant to taste, but actually the quality of those lower fat mayonnaises have gotten quite good. And then again, we're boosting the level of vegetables in there. So we're replacing fat with other flavors and sodium as well with some other flavors, fruit juices and hot sauces and things like that. So let's get underway. First things first, we're going to sweat the red bell peppers. So one of the ways that we're keeping the fat down is use a little cooking spray instead of using a lot of oil. And what you want to keep an eye on here is that that cooking spray will burn, so you want to make sure your pan is not too hot. And a little bit of garlic goes in here as well. And we'll let that start to sweat. I typically add the salt in at this point. What that does is bring some of the liquid out of the peppers, helps them to cook a little bit more quickly, which is great. So we'll do that, and I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. We don't need quite that much sizzle, because we're really just softening them. We're not getting any color on it, though color would not hurt because it would just boost the flavor again. So our next step will be to pulse the shrimp. We'll do that in a food processor. It can absolutely be done by hand. It's just a little bit faster in the processor, a little bit less cleanup, or a different kind of cleanup, let's say. So we'll put those in. These are peeled and deveined shrimp, which again is just a matter of convenience. You can obviously do those things yourself if you like. So we're kind of pulsing just till they are a relatively fine grind. So we'll just check it there. We want to make sure that it's not getting too ground because they tend to get a little bit sticky and it's a little bit harder to mix. So we're just going to give it a couple of more pulses there. Take a bird's eye view, and then we're good. So at this point, our next step is just to mix all of our ingredients together, provided that our peppers have gotten soft enough and they look like they have. So now we have our peppers, they've been, and our garlic, they have been sauteed and they've been chilled. So at this point, this has gotten very, very simple. We're just mixing some ingredients together. I'm going to start with the egg, and the reason we start with the egg at this point is really, quite honestly, it's just to beat the yolk a little bit, soften this all up in here, and then we're going to mix in the remaining ingredients. So now that the eggs have been mixed in with the peppers, we'll talk a little bit about our panko breadcrumb. And panko breadcrumb is actually a Japanese breadcrumb that's very finely ground. It's another one of the ways that we're kind of keeping the calorie count down on this dish. But what we've done is we've separated it. So what you'll see is I have a small bowl here, which is part of the binding process, meaning that we're going to keep all of our ingredients together. And the second one is this small bowl that is actually the outer coating of the cake after we formed it. So you'll see that in a minute, but that's why we have two bowls of the same ingredient. So typically when making any kind of cake like this, a seafood cake, whether it's crab cake, scallop, anything like that, you will have a fairly large amount of egg to help bind. You'll see I only used one, where normally you might use two or more, and perhaps the addition of a full fat mayonnaise as well, but we're going to use this lower calorie, kind of reduced fat mayonnaise in place of both the yolk and the full fat mayonnaise. So it's doing double duty there. And then this breadcrumb goes in. So again, those few ingredients tend to, just be a little bit more difficult to mix together. Quite honestly, the egg yolk is just slippery. That's, so we're just making this easier on ourselves. Because cooking should be easy and fun. And then we're going to stir in our shrimp that's been pulsed. Get all that good stuff out of there. And then we're just folding this in most of the way. We're not going to mix it completely. Again, the reason we're adding these things in kind of increments is just because it makes it a little bit easier to mix together. And then the remaining kind of what's, for lack of a better term, dry ingredients, even though some of them are liquid, are going to go in. So we've got scallion. We have cilantro. Smells wonderful. It's always good to smell great. We have some lime juice. A little bit of sugar. Kind of brings out the natural sweetness of the shrimp. And hot sauce again. And you can control that heat any way you like. And we're just going to finish mixing this together. It's quite soft, which is one of the reasons that we have the breadcrumb on the outside. And once we make these cakes, we're actually going to chill them. If not, we'd never be able to get them in and out of the pan once we're ready to sear them. So right now, we're actually at the point where we're ready to start forming them. So there are a couple of things that you could do here, because these are quite sticky. You could do this in a single step, which means that we would actually go with making the shape and then go into the crumbs, go onto the pan, or do it in 2 steps, which to me is much easier. We're going to shape the cakes, go onto the pan, and then we'll rebread them after we've actually shaped everything. It's just a little bit cleaner of a process. So we're going to ditch our spatula and switch over to an ice cream disher. And the reason we use this is just uniformity. Whenever you're sauteing something from a large batch like this, it's just easier to kind of, measure it out. So this batch gets about 10 cakes. So we're just scooping them. It's very easy. We're going to scoop those out. We may get a few more than that. Depends on how tightly we pack this. And they can be made much smaller for that matter and served more as an hors d'oeuvre than as a cake. What's great about this, when you see that corn and avocado salsa, is that these cakes, with the salsa, which is a full cake, and they're pretty hefty size here, is right around 220 calories, which is pretty great. So it's a very decadent treat, pretty impressive once it's plated up, so we'll see that. And I think I actually am going to get 10. It's always nice when your recipes actually work the way that you intend them to. So that's kind of our first step of making the cakes. The next is to bread them, and I'm going to need to get a clean sheet pan for that. We are in the final stretch here of at least the assembly of the cakes themselves. We've got our second kind of batch of panko breadcrumbs. We have our measured out cakes. So very simply, we just take the cake. It's soft. They're quite soft. Don't worry about them. You don't have to do much work. We're just going to pat that down into a little patty. You don't overhandle it. If you overhandle it, they just get kind of messier and messier. This is a situation where your fingers will get, breadcrumbed. And they don't necessarily get a heavy coating of them, but those go on. We'll do one more. Again, don't worry about leaving a little bit of that cake on the sheet pan there. Fingers get a little sticky, and that's all right. We'll just wash them off before we go into the pan. Great, so now our cakes are done. They're the 10. We're going to put these in the refrigerator because they're so soft. We have to give them an opportunity to firm back up again. That mayonnaise, the egg, and the bread's going to absorb that moisture. It's going to firm those up. Then we'll come back, and while they're chilling, actually, we'll make our avocado and corn salsa. Then we'll be able to fry those up and put our final plate together. So let's do that. Great. So now our cakes are chilling, which is good. We're going to get them nice and firm. We'll be able to saute those up, but we need to make this sauce. There are a couple of things that we'll talk about. One of them is about this poblano chili. It looks like a big kind of hot and spicy chili, but it's really not. It's the chili that is most widely used for stuffing when you go and have Mexican food. So in this case, we're using it in its raw form, which is great. You can also char them over an open flame, which gives it a really more of an intense depth of flavor. But they are often very many different shapes. This one was really nice, so we thought it showed you lots of wrinkles and kind of dips and valleys in it. And then the other ingredient that we'll talk about is avocado. Avocado, for whatever reason, tends to be a little bit intimidating for people because they're not quite sure how to tell when they're ripe. It's quite easy. There are a couple of things to look for. When you look on the stem end, if it's brown or black inside, you want to avoid it. If it has a little bit of a green where the stem was, then you're fine. Everything is okay. It has not overly oxidized. It should be firm with just a little bit of a give. So when you push into it with your thumb, your thumb should not cave in. So it shouldn't really break the skin. It's just firm enough to kind of leave a little bit of an impression. So we'll hold the base of the avocado. You can also do this on the flat of your board, but it's easier for me to hold it. Then you just take the end of the knife, and we're not going to move the knife from this point. We're actually going to move the avocado, and you have better control of it. And what I did was went through the equator of that thing, and it's going to pop it right open. So this end of the avocado is ready to use. I'm going to turn it upside down on the board so it has a little bit less oxygen going to it, which will keep it from turning brown. And then we're just going to take the heel of the knife and carefully kind of whack this in there until it grabs the pit, and then the pit should slip right off of there. And then you can push that off with your thumb. So you're in control all the time, so there's no reason to be concerned about it. And then at this point, you just look at that avocado. A lot of the times, the tip of it where the stem was will have a little bit of brown on it. We'll just kind of carve that out of there. It's really soft. It's a very buttery avocado. So then we're going to score this in both directions. So all I did was just go down the length of it. You're carefully, again, you're not going to go into through the skin, just through the flesh, because obviously your hand is there. But again, you could do this on the board just as easily. And just a little, reckless, I guess. So then we're just going to scoop that avocado out right into the bowl. It's easy. We have a little bit more avocado than we need for this recipe. We'll just snack on that later. And then we're just going to mix the rest of the ingredients together. Super easy. We've got some white shoe peg corn. Any kind of corn will do. We like the shoe peg because it's naturally sweet. Then we have that poblano chili that we talked about. Has just a little bit of heat, but a nice, bright, kind of clean flavor. We have some cilantro, which has, it's in our cakes as well, so it's going to bring that flavor back out again. We have a bit of onion. It's red onion. Again, has some natural sweetness, not quite so hot. So lime juice. Lime juice is going to keep that avocado from turning brown and also helps us to control the salt. It's a really minor amount of salt in here, so we're going to controlling that. And this is good fat again. Avocados are great for you. They give you a really nice richness to whatever your dish is. I'm just kind of crushing these a little bit. You could dice them a little bit smaller, whichever you like. It's not guacamole, but it certainly could be. It would be a really delicious one if you wanted it. We'll just break that up a little bit. Make sure everything is mixed well. That lime juice needs to coat everything or you're going to have a brown relish, and that's no fun. We want the brown on the outside of those cakes after they've come out of the pan, not in our avocado corn salsa. So that's it. I'm going to have a little taste here to make sure our flavors are right. I think it's going to be delicious. I don't know that we need anything else in here. It's really good. It's a little bit tangy from the lime juice. It's going to be great. So I'll grab the cakes. We're going to warm the pan up, and then we'll grab those shrimp cakes, and we'll be able to plate this up in just a few minutes. So now our cakes are out of the fridge. They've chilled up, and they're quite firm in comparison to when we had first breaded them. The panko breadcrumb is going to be soft, not anything to be concerned about. It's going to crisp back up in the pan. So the pan is over medium-high heat or so. You'll know how to control that, the level of heat. If it starts to get too brown too fast, then you just lower that down a little bit. So we're just going to put a light coating in here. It doesn't need to be a lot. That's a pretty common mistake I think people have in their kitchens. They tend to put a little bit too much oil in the pan all the time. It's really not necessary. So just in general with your cooking, give it a try to bring back, halfway. And you'll be surprised how much fat you're able to control in your diet. So the cakes just go in. You're going to get a light little sizzle there. It's not like searing a piece of meat where you want a really intense sizzle, so we're going to put a couple in there. I'm picking the ones that I like, you can tell, that are all the same size. So we're just going to let those brown up. I'm going to increase the heat just a little bit so we get the sizzle. And what you're looking for is the crumbs to get a nice golden brown, a little bit crispy, and then we'll flip them. So you're looking at, 2.5 to 3.5 minutes on each side. The shrimp is going to cook through. Shrimp is very fast cooking, so you don't really have to worry about it not cooking enough. I promise you that it will. And once those are brown, we're going to plate it up with our great avocado and corn salsa that we made. So now we're ready to finalize the shrimp cake plate and take a look at the rest of our dishes that we've made today. So let's just get one of these on the plate here. Very simple to plate with our avocado and corn salsa. We'll give it a little lime wedge there just in case someone likes a little extra tartness. And then, like we had earlier in the day, we've got our orange chipotle pecans with the dried cranberries. And then when we have our lemon pot stickers that we made with the lean turkey and that very intensely flavored sauce. So we just want you to remember that you can have your decadent bites and still be healthy by replacing those fats with alternative ingredients and really boosting the flavors with healthy spices and zests and juices and other intense flavors. So enjoy.